Chapter 144. Plop. I heard something falling in the quiet conference room between conversations. When the nobles turned toward the sound, the second prince, who's sitting at the top, was silently picking up the minutes of the meeting that had been dropped to the ground. Florentia. At the completely unexpected name, Emperor Jovanes raised his eyebrows. Yes, Gallian's daughter. She is the childhood friend of the second prince. Once again, the eyes that had shifted to the emperor turned to Perez. As always, the second crown prince silently received the gaze with a mask-like face. That's right, that kid. But it's not Galyahan. Are you saying you're going to put that girl in charge? The emperor asked, curiously. The same was true of the nobles, but Lulak answered without embarrassment, because he was already expecting such a response. Clarivan Pellet of the Pellet Corporation, who now has a large supply of triva wood, is a teacher who has taught Florentia for a long time. My granddaughter acts as a bridge between Lombardy and Pellet. Even so, despite his explanation, Jovanes continued frowning, made Lulak feel uncomfortable at heartily. He'll spend his money helping the North with his granddaughter. He doesn't know what's wrong with Lula. In addition, the Emperor should have opened the treasury and settled the matter. However, knowing that Jovines is as stingy as the nobles gathered here to spend her own money, Lulak did it himself. In terms of temperament, a grumpy desire to cancel everything and save money arose, but Lulak endured it, thinking of Tia. Lulak hid his disapproving expression and told the crowd, my granddaughter is young, but she's smart enough to invoke in Lombardy's main business. This Lombardy delivery business is also her work. Oh, the delivery business. The business was Galyahan's daughters. I don't like how they treat Tia as only Galyahan's daughters. Fortunately, there was an explosive reaction among the nobles. All of them visited the delivery business briefing at least once. The corners of Lulak's mouth crept up without anyone knowing. His shoulders naturally shrugged, and his nose slightly raised. Sure, Lombardy, not only the children, but the grandchildren, all wonderful. We don't have any worries because of the Lord of Lombardy. The atmosphere of the conference hall, which had been rigidly stiff, was loosened for a moment. Dulac also smiled and nodded secretly because he didn't hate the reaction of those praising his granddaughter. In the middle of that amicable moment, Emperor Jovanes could not smile as comfortably. Obviously, the center of the conference hall is him, the emperor, and before he knew it, the initiative of the atmosphere was transferred to Lombardy again. In addition, Lula Lombardy, who was elated for having a good afterthought, looked up. Lombardy stepped up and gave it to him, so he can't stand still. After a moment of agony, Emperor Jovines hid his grumpy temper and said with a nice smile, the imperial family will send 5,000 gold and relief goods to the north, and if you need anything else, I'm willing to send someone in charge of the imperial family with supplies. The imperial family is in charge, whose name will be called. People are paying keen attention. Jovines gaze was also busy sweeping the crowd. He is choosing the appropriate personnel to be appointed as the person in charge. Then there was a young and strong voice. I'll go to north, your majesty. It was Perez. I've traveled to the north for a long time, just like the east. I am well aware of the geography of the area, and I will do my best to facilitate the support on behalf of you. Oh, Jovane's complexion brightened up. Yes, there was a second prince. Lula Lombardi is proud of his granddaughter, but the second prince is his. The emperor grinned and said, yes, that's very reliable. I'll order the second prince to be in charge of the Northern Relief Project. Take care of the north for me. And as you can see, he skimmed the responses of the nobles. Yes, your majesty, leave it to me. The eyes of the aristocrat who looked at the second prince politely bowed were quiet to Jovane's liking. Surely, the second prince was different from the first prince. No matter what he does, they were able to trust him because he was so smart. It would have been better if he had been born by the empress, not a maid of the humble commoners. It was quite a shame that the obstacle is his origin that he couldn't overcome. Then let's move on to the next agenda. The next item on the agenda is Emperor Jovanes, who was reading the list of agenda items posted by the chairman of the aristocratic council, spoke out, because it was an issue that he wanted to avoid. It is time to determine the cause of the landslide and determine the punishment, your majesty. In case Jovin slipped over, Lola quickly announced in a polite voice. The landslide is a natural disaster, but what can we do to find the cause? The important thing is to rebuild the north as soon as possible. Please take a look at this. Lula Lombardi handed over some thin documents. What is this? The reason there were so few human casualties from this landslide is that a geologist hired by the Pellet Corporation was investigating near the northern mines, predicting the landslide in advance and alerting Lord Ivan. It is a copy of the report. Is that true? Jovines asked Deputy Lord Ivan. Yes, your majesty. I asked my father to confirm it. The geologist's report clearly states two causes. The first is high precipitation, and the second is excessive logging. And as the geologist had expected, there was a huge landslide. Landslides in the north are a man-made disaster. Jovines showed discomfort by keeping his mouth shut. How can we not know that Angenes has been holding hands with Ivan and logging excessively? But he didn't want to punish Angenes. It was not sympathy for the Empress who lay in bed with her food and drink. It was a matter of pride. It was hard to believe that Angenes, the in-laws of the imperial family, was punished for this. Deputy Lord Ivan, yes, Your Majesty. What do you think? Of course, it's a natural disaster. Emperor Jovanes laughed inwardly. Who in the world wants to be punished? I am. We, Ivan, will be punished with atonement from Your Majesty and the people of the provinces. What? The Emperor was embarrassed and asked again, will you receive punishment? That's right, Your Majesty. Although there was pressure from Angenes, Ivan was the first to fail to fulfill his duty to consider the interest of the territories and the northern people. Deputy Lord Ivan, who watched Lulat Lombardi with a dry mouth intention, continued to talk. To reflect on this, Ivan will not cut any more logging than is necessary for the lives of the people of the country for the next 5 years, nor will he make any profit by trading out of the territory. Are you going to give up forestry for the next 5 years? Yes, the Ivan family chose to punish themselves severely. Forestry was one of the most profitable businesses in the north, but he can't believe they gave it up. And I humbly accept your punishment if you do. This was Ivan's fault in front of the emperor, like lying on his face. Emperor Jovanes clicked his tongue inside. Now that Ivan has come out like this, if Angenes goes over without any punishment, there will be no choice but to talk about equality. In addition, a little while ago, Deputy Lord Ivan even mentioned the pressure of Angenes. Jovanes had to punish Angenes in some form. Before he knew it, the nobles were quiet. Everyone is waiting for the emperor's words, and then Perez spoke in a low voice. How about an amersement? Amersement? Yes, I think that would be appropriate. The amersement was the lightest and most dignified punishment a nobleman could afford. Sure enough, Lola Lombardi said in a low voice. The walls collapsed and there were casualties. It's not just about the amersement. Aren't amersement also depend on the amersement? Perez retorted Lulak's words, and looking at Emperor Jovanes, he said, I think it would be meaningful to impose a high amersement and add a certain amount of money to the reconstruction work in the north, Your Majesty. That's a great idea. Emperor Jovain slapped his knee and said, if such an amersement is imposed, it will save the public's reputation and honor of the imperial family. Jovains hurriedly declared before further opposition. We will impose an amersement of 10,000 gold on the Ingenuous family and use half of that 5,000 gold for reconstruction work in the north. There is no room for further discussion, as the order of desolation has already been made. Lulak stared silently at the second prince. Lulak doesn't like him. From going with Florentia in the north to claiming the amersement a while ago, he's not happy. No, he hasn't liked anything since the first day he saw Perez at the falling palace. Even though Perez may not be unaware of Lulak's hostile gaze, Perez looked at Lulak and smiled uncharacteristically. Not much in the surface, but Perez is in a good mood now. It was also the case that he could go with Tia to the north, but most of all, the Empress and Danjana spent a large sum of 10,000 gold. He was worried that he didn't have enough triva wood that he has saved so far to dry Angena's money completely. An amersement of 10,000 gold to be paid immediately was a very reasonable amount. Perez smiled silently as he walked out after the emperor left the conference room. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 10,000 gold. Upon hearing the results of the conference, Empress Robini bit her lip. Normally, an amersement would have worked, but not now. The funds were far short. Shall we dispose of the estate? Luigi Angenes, who was wary, asked carefully. That's the only way, isn't it? Empress Robin replied in a cool voice. The family that owns the largest estate in the West has the right to represent. Thus, disposing of the estate was the last resort. But for now, no other sharp numbers were seen. Then, send a letter to the other families in the West. Wait, the Empress stopped Luigi and approached the table and picked up a letter that arrived in front of her a few days ago. Empress Robini, who had felt the smooth texture of fine paper, told Luigi, if we sell any more estate of Western families, your position may be dangerous, Luigi. So what should I do? Someone who would not pose a threat to our leadership, even if they had a Western land document. I'll have to hand it over to them. The Empress muttered something unexpected and sat right in front of her desk and held up a plug pen. Then a moment later, she held out a tightly sealed purple envelope to Luigi. Send this letter to Susu. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I couldn't find anything strange. Would be a waste of time to investigate the Pellet Corporation anymore. Lignite spoke to Perez in a very low voice. What the hell are you looking for? If you let me know, the investigation would be much easier. I don't know exactly what it is, but something's not right. Lignite sighed softly at Perez's response. However, he did not complain. Perez's instincts were always frighteningly beaten. That is why he patiently followed the orders despite Perez's unfounded suspicion of the Pellet Corporation. It's definitely strange. A merchant can't resist the money and release it as a relief package at the expense of losses. It's a political move. When he heard that Triva wood, which had only piled up hard, was eventually used for reconstruction in the north, Midnight doubted his ears. With Anjana's buying wood in front of them, the tree could have brought astronomical returns. What in the world did Pellet get by giving it up? Find out more about Pellet, especially Clarivan Pellet. Then all the pieces will be put together. It was just when Perez ordered it. All set for departure, Your Highness, second prince. The servant of the palace approached and announced. Then, have a safe trip, Your Highness. Lignite bowed his head politely, as if he had spoken informally. Perez received the greeting and asked the servant, Did you hear from the selection team? Yes, they say there's nothing wrong. Are the latecomers ready to defend themselves? We've prepared everything for the latecomers to depart exactly 3 hours after the procession of departed. Are all the conveniences for Lady Lombardi prepared? Yes, Your Highness. They can't believe he's taking care of the lady's convenience. Is he not trusting us? A moment of disappointment flashed across the face of the servant, but that's also for a while. Good job. As he said so, the regrets of him to Perez, who touched his shoulder, were all blown away. Everyone's ready and waiting. What are you doing here? What are you doing there, Your Highness, second prince? Florentia, who had been in the carriage earlier, couldn't hold it in the end and came up with a quick walk and asked, We won't start going until the sun has fallen. Seeing that her eyes were not smiling at all, she seemed very dissatisfied with Perez, but she looked pretty, too, and Perez said, swallowing a smile, Sorry, Lady Lombardi. We'll be on our way. Perez politely escorted Florentia back to the carriage. Then he got on the same carriage and said, Let's go. The carriage doors closed, and the procession carrying relief supplies for the north began to move slowly. The back of a luxurious large carriage was especially prepared by Perez's request. Perez's empty carriage's horses, which did not carry its owner, made a loud noise and rolled his feet lightly. End of chapter 144.